The Black Guerilla Family, or BGF, wasn't born on the streets of Baltimore. It started in the belly of the beast, the California prison system, in the 1960s. Founded by a man named George Jackson, a Black Panther behind bars, the BGF was all about revolution. They saw themselves as political prisoners, victims of a racist system. By the 1980s, the BGF's message of Black power and resistance resonated with inmates in Maryland. They were tired of abuse, they were tired of neglect, they wanted control. The BGF offered them that. The gang's structure was strict, like a military operation. Leaders gave orders, soldiers followed them. This discipline, combined with their message of empowerment, made them attractive to young Black men in prison. They were a brotherhood, a family, bound by loyalty and violence. And they quickly became a force to be reckoned with, both inside and outside the prison walls. The BGF's rise to power within Maryland prisons was swift and brutal. They used violence to intimidate other inmates and assert their dominance. They preyed on the weak, extorting them for protection. They controlled the flow of drugs, cigarettes, and other contraband. But it wasn't just about brute force. The BGF understood the power of information. They cultivated a network of informants within the prison system. Guards were bribed. Records were altered. Intelligence was their weapon. This control gave them leverage over the administration. They could incite riots. They could expose corruption. They could make life hell for anyone who crossed them. The prisons weren't equipped to handle this level of organization. The BGF exploited this weakness, tightening its grip on the system. They were the law inside those walls. The influence of the BGF wasn't confined to the prison yard. It spilled out onto the streets of Baltimore like poison seeping into the water supply. Members on the outside worked with those on the inside, coordinating criminal activities. Drugs flowed from the prisons into the city's veins. Guns were smuggled in, fueling the cycle of violence. Orders were given from behind bars, dictating who to rob, who to extort, who to kill. The BGF's tentacles reached into every corner of Baltimore's underworld. They were involved in prostitution rings, gambling dens, and protection rackets. Their reach extended beyond the city limits, connecting them to criminal enterprises across state lines. Fear kept people silent. Witnesses were intimidated. Victims were afraid to come forward. The BGF had created a climate of fear that permeated every level of society. Section 4. Violence and Criminal Enterprise. The BGF's name became synonymous with violence in Baltimore. Their brutality was legendary. They weren't afraid to use violence to protect their interests. They weren't afraid to kill. The streets were their battleground. Turf wars with rival gangs erupted in gunfights. Innocent bystanders were caught in the crossfire. The body count rose with each passing year. One of the most notorious examples of the BGF's ruthlessness was the murder of Correctional Officer David McGuinn in 2005. He was gunned down outside his home, an execution ordered from within the prison walls. This act of violence shook the city to its core. It showed just how far the BGF was willing to go to maintain their power and silence anyone who dared to challenge them. The fight against the BGF has been a long and arduous one. Law enforcement agencies have made some progress in dismantling the gang's leadership structure. There have been high-profile arrests and convictions, but the BGF is a hydra. Cut off one head and two more grow back. Their deep roots in the prison system make them difficult to eradicate. New recruits are constantly being drawn in, seduced by the promise of power and protection. The solution isn't just about locking people up. It's about breaking the cycle of poverty, inequality, and despair that fuels gang violence. It's about providing opportunities for young people in marginalized communities. Until then, the BGF will continue to cast a long shadow over Baltimore, a stark reminder of the challenges facing the city.